Pirate Kings, Pirate Queens, non-binary monarchs of the sea, what's up? How's it going? What's going on? I am so excited to be back here bringing you more One Piece card game data as we approach the next format with OP09 coming out this Friday. Of course, this week in particular has me dealing with two other big deadlines events, so I won't be able to do the full countdown that I normally like doing in the week up to set release. However, with this format giving us so much new stuff compared to what we've seen over the past few months, I at least wanted to do a countdown, a lead up of sorts. So I will be uploading 4 deck profiles this week. Hopefully one Monday, one Tuesday, one Wednesday, one Thursday, but they might get a little clumped together depending on how this week goes. For each of the new OP09 leaders this week until Friday in air quotes, because, Friday is the target, but we'll see what happens, when I will upload the big OP09 by the data video with a full tier list based on results from the East, data-generated deck lists for the top 14 leaders, with the chance of a couple honorable mentions, and additional data from games played on OP Bounty up until the set's release. For anyone who may be new to the channel, here is a breakdown of my process. What I do is, whenever we have a new format coming out, I go to whatever source I have, in this case, One Piece Top Decks, Hirata on Twitter, and get as much info as I can, as many tournament topping lists as I can find, plug them all into a giant spreadsheet, and with that information, I am able to compute leader rankings, data-generated deck lists, a standard winning deck list for the leader, as well as other relevant stats to a deck, such as its cost curve, the number of 2K counters, the number of non-counter cards, blockers, events, triggers, relevant search targets, what have you, in order to give us the best snapshot of what we are picking up from as this new format, OP09 in our case, comes to our side of the world. If you enjoy this sort of thing, please stick around, leave a like. If you want more, if you want to know when that big OP09 by the data comes out, feel free to subscribe. And if you have any of your own thoughts on the deck that I am talking about today, if you have your own tech choices that you've included, if you have your own experience with the games you've played with this deck, I would love to hear them down below. Either way, this is Sakura Kingdom. Lovely to have you here. Let's get started. Now, I don't know about you, but since this game was first announced, there was one character I needed a leader for, and for so long, Bandai has kept us waiting, but our boy is an emperor now. He is the chosen one, our big boss, the future pirate king, the genius jester, BUGGY D. Clown. Let's go! Oh, he's so glorious. I am so ready, and, jokes side beside, I'm just so happy I can finally play a BUGGY deck. It's not format defining. It only ended up in Rogue when all was said and done, but how can we not be excited here? It's BUGGY. We can play a BUGGY deck. Let's go. All right, so getting into it. BUGGY is a 5-life leader that allows us to rest 5 Don and discard 1 card from our hand to play any cross-guild character from our hand. This is going to limit our deck building to a degree and has the potential to eat up a lot of cards from our hand. But some of these cross-guild cards are worth the payoff, and he did manage to get a top 4 finish at ACS and a couple flagship wins reported here and there, so there is something to this deck. Unfortunately, a few of the promo cards that cemented BUGGY's potential in the format will not be immediately available to us, and we don't know when we'll get them. I'm hoping, even, that we'll get them in an event pack or a regional participation pack once 2025 hits, but there's also a fair chance that we won't see them until OP10 on our side. Maybe. And our king deserves better. But I'm going to start us off with the full format data list. Afterward, I'll take a little bit of time to go over a couple lists from before the promos were released that might give us some insights, some ideas into how to shift the deck if you're really itching to play him at anything official as soon as possible. Now, since this deck revolves around the single strongest character in all of One Piece's past, present, or future, I feel the need to start with our boss character, 10-cost BUGGY. He is what we're building toward. 12k power, and the ability to bottom deck any of our opponent's characters. He is like a gum red rock on legs with one of the beefiest stat lines possible, as long as we have 5 characters with cost of 5 or higher on the field. Otherwise, he goes straight to the bottom of the deck after processing his effect. Now, there may be some situations where we just need to remove a big body, and our leader effect lets us play him for 5 regardless of what our board looks like, but those situations are far from the norm, far from what we want, and the cross-guild engine is built to make the most of our potential tempo here. Without the cards we're about to go over, let's say we go first. We can play one 5-cost character at 5 Don, another at 7, another at 9, and then 2, including this buggy, at 10 by using our leader effect. Going second, we get 1 at 6, 1 at 8, and then 2 at 10 in the same way. This means we only get to play him on turn 5, which we definitely want to have him out by, going first, and only if all of our characters survive, which is a hard ask at this stage in the game. And for that reason, the most crucial cards in our deck to get us going are the 7-cost Crocodile and the 7-cost Buggy. When played, they both give us a chance to play an extra character from our hand, with conditions depending on which 7-cost we are using at the time, which will give us the extra wiggle room necessary to get to 5 costs by the time we want to get our big boss out. Crocodile can cheat out a 5-cost with the Cross-Guild type, or a type including Baroque Works, so former Baroque Works cards are fair game with him. Our ideal target is going to be Mr. 1 from EBO1, since he lets us filter through our deck, but we also have the vanilla Mr. 1 from OP09, the promo Crocodile once he's released, Kabaji, Moji, though those two are also 2Ks, or the 2K Mr. 2 from OP02 if we decide to play him. This list does not. Plus, Crocodile has 1K counter, so if we have enough discards for our leader ability, and more 7 costs than we need to play, he could get us out of an attack. But when we depend so much on a card like this, 4 copies could be inconsistent, and that is why 7-cost Buggy was the champion that we needed. Like Crocodile, he can cheat out another character, in this case a 6-cost or lower cross-guild character, and our prime target for him is going to be Mihawk, a 6-cost, 7K blocker who also lets us draw 2 and trash 1. In case it wasn't incredibly obvious, being able to cycle through our deck, see these combo pieces, get what we need in order to have the board necessary for our late game is incredibly crucial. And Mihawk allowing us to get card advantage in order to offset the leader ability and give us the defense we need to get to turn 5 and be safely able to play that Buggy. It's an amazing card on its own, and the fact that we can get him out with the 7-cost Buggy is one of the best things about these promos. One of, because there are so many good things about the promos, this one in particular. This Buggy here also has 8K power, but he also can't attack because violence is beneath such a glorious stud like Buggy. Not that he's a raging coward or anything, but he's also the first floodgate we've had in the game, since he stops any of our opponent's 3 or 4-cost characters from attacking. This will of course be great against Dofi, especially if they aren't able to find a red rock to remove him quickly, and this plays no small part in the deck making it to Rogue. But this also freezes Kuzan, no pun intended, Lucci, 3-cost Brook in the Lucci matchup, as well as Burgess and Teach, Bone Clay and Zorojuro against Purple, and I guess Lucky Roo versus Shanks. He's not a win con by any means or other matchups. His effectiveness will vary in those other matchups, but he does have some application across the board in most cases. All this to say that in order for Buggy to work as intended, he needs these specific cards to show up. And like I mentioned when I was talking about Mihawk, we need the ability to see a lot of cards to make that happen consistency. We need capital to get this business going and to offset the cost of our leader ability. We're definitely using life as a resource in this deck, and we're saving our hand instead of countering the early swings. We also have our 1-cost searcher, Mr. 3. He only searches 4 cards, but he can search for Cross-Guild and Baroque Works type, so he is incredibly consistent. And Buggy will, without question, run 4 copies of Sanji's Pilaf. We play at turn 2, start cheating out characters the turn after. This list also has 2 copies of Kaya and the Cross-Guild search event, and they clearly worked here, but those are the flex spots in our consistency package. After that, we just have a couple of utility cards to round us out. Jozu has become a blue staple after seeing success in Dofi. He seems counterintuitive here at first, since there's no way we can use our leader ability the same turn that we play him. But to me, he has a couple uses that I've been able to figure out so far. He's a backup option on turns 3 or 4 if we don't have the 7 cost we need. If we have Mr. 3 or Kaya either on our field or we have the extra dome to play it from our hand, that's an easy way to reuse our resources. And we can at least push our opponent back to make up for the potential board development we lost out on without our 7 cost. This also applies if our opponent is able to pressure or control us to the point that a 10 cost buggy sticking on turn 5 just isn't possible, and in the Dolphy matchup, he can serve as insurance after we've played our 7 cost buggy turn 3 to bounce the Jozu that they might play to get around our floodgate. This list in particular also uses the other promos that we'll be waiting on. Promo Crocodile complements our floodgate buggy from the other side of things by tucking a character with 2,000 power or less. He can stop a searcher from getting that extra attack off and a card out of our hand, or he can get rid of a preemptively played Building Snake or a 2-cost brother in the BY Luffy matchup. He's also great to get rid of chump blockers, Shirahoshi in an L, Rebecca in black, and for black, he doesn't just get Rebecca off the field, but he stops Moria from bringing that copy back again in the next turn. And finally, we have this 4-cost Mihawk. Like Jozu, he seems a bit strange, but his strength comes from the timing of his play. If we go first, and we only have 3 bodies when we hit turn 5, we can spend 4 to play the Mihawk, use his effect to switch him with a 5-cost in our hand, and then play the 10-cost buggy with our leader ability and keep him on the board. Or if we play him down on an earlier turn, we can attack with him before using his effect just to get that extra little bit of pressure in. There's also a chance that he can work with Jozu on 10 to still get 2 bodies out, but we might be in precarious territory if we even get to a point like that. Overall, these 2 promos weren't mandatory includes like the 7-cost buggy himself, but after looking into them more, I'm definitely seeing their value. Now, I personally want to play Buggy as soon as possible. I can mess around with these promos online on the sim, but if I'm really looking to get flashy at locals, what do I do? Without the 7-cost buggy, our double deployments on turn 3 and 4 aren't as consistent, and then we're also a little more fragile against Dolphy and any other 3 or 4 cost heavy decks, or decks that just hit us for 5 a ton. Now I've got 2 lists that won standard battles in the first week of the set. Not the biggest achievement, by far definitely not nearly as good as top 4 at a CS, but it's something to go off of. Our first list decided to go a little further in the control direction with a full 4 copies of Jozu and a full 4 Kaya to dig deeper and serve as a bounce target, as well as a Red Rock and 2 Gravity Blade. They also played Margaret to draw a card and stave off that little bit of aggression that can make the difference in the early and mid game, and to keep our board development as consistent as possible, they played 3 Alvida to get 2 5 costs out for the price of 1.
Hey, Editing Soccer Kingdom here. I just realized Alvida is an on KO effect, not on play. She is definitely not as good as I thought she was. Puts a slight damper on my pre-promo buggy ambitions, but I'm not going to give up. But I will say, hey, anything I say about Alvida being able to cheat out extra characters, just ignore that. Sorry. Long week. Anyway, back to the video.
I also like the fact that she saves us from having to discard a card on turn 3, and she can play any 5 cost or lower, not just Cross Guild, so our Filter Das Bones is still an option. But also, not getting to play a free Mihawk does hurt. It is something that I'm going to be wishing I could do if I play Alvida. And the other pre-promo list I had decided to focus more on the 5 costs by ditching Kaya for Bon Clay, who can be played by Croc and Alvida, and running Richie as a blocker who we can get out for free with Moji. No more Jozu here. Now, I always feel a little anxious when I'm playing out my 2Ks, especially when we're using so many cards from hand for our leader ability and the cards that indirectly cheats out, but it's an option here. It is a way we can play the deck. And that's also mitigated to a degree with Empty Bluffs Island to filter our hand from the very start of the game, and 10-cost Kaido to keep us going in the late game and give us another big body in case the buggy isn't feasible. Now, most of what I've said is either theory or something that I have been able to pick up from reading Japanese articles, and the tiniest bit of experience. I've only had a chance to play 1 game with Buggy so far. But one thing was apparent in that game, and that was just how much value every single card in my hand had. I think I was against a rough matchup in general, but either, I think in this game, using my leader ability turn 4 to get 2 more Dawn of Pressure on my opponent's board, or countering 1 life that I didn't necessarily need to, was the difference between a flashy, gaudy, stellar endgame and the whole tent collapsing. The advice I wish I stuck to is, as soon as you have your opening hand, determine what it's going to take for you to have 5 costs on the board on turn 5, and then counter, discard, search, cycle accordingly. Either way, this deck is fun, it's weird, when it pops off, it is flashy, it is exactly what our Lord and Savior, Buggy D Clown, would want. We are almost done, but I did want to go over the card counts like I usually do. This is keeping all 5 deck lists in mind pre and post promo. The sample size is small, but you'll see that regardless of pre or post promo, we're playing 4 copies each of Galdino, Crocodile, Mihawk, 10-cost Buggy, the EBO1 Das Bones, the Sanchi's Pilaf, the Kabaji, the Moji, the Vanilla Mr. 1, either 2 or 4 in most lists. And then, we see as soon as we have the Buggy, we play him. Mr. 2 and Jozu were played in a majority of these lists. And then we have these tech options. I believe I talked about most of them. Pudding, I think, is the only one that I didn't really go into at all. Blue Staple, if you can find the room for her, if you find her relevant to the matchups you're going into, then fully worth it. It's just going to be up to your own experience. Oh, I also may have forgotten to mention Gum Gum Rain. I don't know if I'm married to it. I'm still settling on a pre-promo build between these 2 that I've shown before myself, but it's definitely worth consideration. And if you've seen my past videos, this is also where I would go over the 10 potential cuts and additions. I don't think that one's necessary here. There are only so many lists. The package is very, very standard. I think I've probably demonstrated that here. If it's something you are curious about, like what the data would say for it, let me know. I could put it there, but I think that after this, we all have a pretty good idea of where the flex spots are. But that is Buggy. Oh my God, finally, he is here. I love this stupid clown. He's a meme. He's a meme at this point. I am memeing, but also, he's just gonna be so fun. I'm there. I don't think there are any big events for OP09 just because it's gonna be a nationals format. So, I'm probably not gonna be going too crazy this set. I will be sleeving this up and playing it probably over the holidays at my locals back home. So yeah. Hope you enjoy it. If you are playing Buggy, let me know what you think of him down below. I need to go back through, now that I'm looking at Alvita, I need to see if there are any other non-Cross-Guild, non-Baroque Works blue 5 costs that could be worth a slot here if we're really chefing. If you've seen any, let me know. I would love a nice tip there. But either way, thank you so much for listening if you have made it this far. Stay tuned. We have 3 more deck profiles coming out this week before the big OP09 by the data video. Friday, air quotes. Hopefully then I'm going to do everything I can to put it out there then. If you want to know if I manage to put it out there then, go ahead and subscribe. Get that notification. And if you like the video, always appreciate a like. Share it with your friends if you know someone who is either a Buggy fan getting into the game or just enjoys data. But either way, thank you so much. This is Sakura Kingdom. I haven't done this bit in a while. I'm going to try and dig up the old how-to mime book from my sophomore year Intro to Movement Theater class back when I was in college, just because I'm back in the spirit. And I'll see you soon.